We are talking the original Prom Night, the 1980 original. You know, I had to come back and revisit this one because here in the summer of 2022, I've really wanted to go and watch a lot of original movies that I've never really either seen or I've only watched once or twice, didn't really get the time or day to. Recently I did, When a Stranger Calls, and hadn't seen the original, hadn't seen the remake, know the story of them, but never seen them. So I was like, okay, time to knock that out. And I saw the original Prom Night sometime in the last 10 years, and I wasn't that impressed by it when I first saw it. And so I never had any reason to go revisit it. But then I decided I really wanted to watch the Prom Night remake because I remember only seeing bits and pieces of that back in the day. It was either right when I was working for Blockbuster or after I was done working for Blockbuster, like immediately after. But I really just wanted to revisit the original because it would give me a reason to see the remake as well too. And I know what you're thinking. Come on, because people love Prom Night. People absolutely love the original film. So how could I be crazy and say I didn't really like it that much? And not only that, how could I only be wanting to watch it so I could watch the remake? I know I'm insane, y'all. I never said that I wasn't in the least bit, but that's just the way that it is. Now, here's the thing about Prom Night, before we start getting into what it's really about. This is really, in my opinion, what kind of took Jamie Lee Curtis to like that next level that she wanted to be at. Because if you go back and look at Jamie Lee Curtis's earlier career, obviously there's so much horror in there. Like looking from 1978 until like the mid 80s, she started with Halloween, and then she kept going a couple more Halloween films, Terror Train, The Fog, and Prom Night. And I feel Prom Night's actually where her big recognition came from, because it was only a couple of years after she did Prom Night to where she started getting roles in things like Trading Places and Grandview USA and Buckaroo Banzai and everything. And I really do feel that Prom Night was the one that kind of helped turn the tide even more for slasher films. And I have to admit that I don't know what I was smoking, what I was drinking, what I was doing when I watched Prom Night the first time and didn't really enjoy it, because man, this is way more enjoyable the second time around. Now, if you've never seen Prom Night before, the story is simple. It starts off with a group of kids playing a game of hide and go seek. That's basically, like, I forgot what they call it. It's like killer escape, something like that. It's where every time you find somebody, they also become a killer. And unfortunately, these group of kids end up accidentally causing their friend Robin to fall to her death. Unbeknownst to them, somebody has seen the death of Robin. And 6 years later, when our kids are all getting set to graduate from high school, and hence the name, the prom is coming up, somebody has decided to seek revenge amongst everybody that was involved in the death of young Robin, and murders start to occur in our small little town. Now, that's it. There's not really much more complications to this story, because anything else is really like very secondary to the actual story itself. Like there's this whole plot where Jamie Lee Curtis's character is dating this one guy who just broke up with a kind of a friend, kind of an enemy of hers, and because of that we get this Carrie style story to where this girl is now seeking revenge on Jamie Lee Curtis and her ex-boyfriend, and wants to make their life a living hell on the night of prom, so she gets friendly with the school bully to help her put that in place. And that's fine. That's a serviceable storyline. But again, it's very similar to like Carrie, and Carrie did it a little bit better, at least for that portion of the story. But that's not really why we're watching this here. In a stark contrast to some of the other slashers around the time, the whole idea here was that I guess we got to compare it directly to Halloween. Like Halloween, we know that the killer is Michael Myers. It's not about Michael taking his mask off and us seeing it. Like, this is Michael Myers. In Prom Night, we get a whodunit, because we're really trying to figure out who's the one that's killing these kids, what's their motivation behind it. There's got to be something, because it's not played to be cheesy, kind of like Summer Party Massacre, which I love, as well as When a Stranger Calls, which also not too bad either, honestly. Like, it's not supposed to be somewhat cheesy. It is supposed to be more on the serious side. These people are all paying a price for something that they did. And it's interesting because a lot of slashers definitely took their cue from a film like this moving forward, to where, you know, somebody gets wronged, it ends up with someone getting hurt, somebody getting killed, and years later, somebody, whether it's that person themselves or someone related to them or a friend, decides to seek revenge for what ended up happening. And I was under the impression, I was definitely under the impression when I first saw it, again, I don't know, I got this memory. I really told myself that with Prom Night, none of the killings actually happened until like the last 20 minutes of the film. I don't know why I thought that there, but I think what I actually was misremembering was, it's not so much they happen in the last 20 minutes of the film, it's that literally nothing happens until Prom Night itself. Like basically, nobody actually gets killed. Nobody actually gets killed until the night of prom. And maybe that's why I felt something was off, because it was so interesting to me that the entire movie takes place within one night. Like a lot of our modern slashers, they're drawn out over, you know, a number of days, maybe, you know, even a few weeks, but usually most slashers don't take place in one night. And so that's a really efficient and effective killer, to kill that many people on the night of prom. Like, I've been to prom. I've been to 2 proms now when I was back in high school. Prom is like a lot of work, and you're going off and killing multiple people and somehow still covering your tracks. Well fucking done on that to our killer. And it was such a simple idea for the killer in this movie. They're just wearing, you know, a ski mask at that point, and he's going around killing people with a glass shard. And I love the fact that that's somehow an iconic weapon, because we always think about what weapons are synonymous with our killers. When Michael Myers is a butcher knife, with Jason Voorhees, it's a machete. With Freddy Krueger, you know, it's the razor fingers. And for our killer in Prom Night, it's a shard of glass and a ski mask. And it's so simplistic, and yet it's still effective. And I think that's because this really is a normal, more grounded slasher. Things like Scream, things like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, Halloween, Friday the 13th, you know, a lot of these other slashers, they're very much not grounded in reality. Whether it's because they're so like super meta, or it's because the killer themselves just can take endless amounts of damage and nothing bad happens to them. Or they're even just presented as like this hulking behemoth, this person who just, you know, they can move like quicker than anybody's been known to man. They can lift things that people don't do. They have precision aim, all these kinds of things that just aren't real, you know? And in Prom Night, what I love about the killer is that they are human. They're human, they're clumsy, they can get hit, they can get knocked out, they constantly like screw things up, and I really enjoyed that. And it's very clear to be like, this person is humanized. And I really enjoyed that about Prom Night, is that our killer was humanized compared to a lot of other slashers where they're not, which is not a knock, but it's refreshing to see that. And it's funny I say refreshing, this film, because this film came before so many other slashers of our time. But what's very much interesting about it is that the gore factor of Prom Night is definitely where we started to see the tide turn as well too, and movies started being more comfortable showing death scenes and more explicit death scenes. And Prom Night, definitely at the time of its release in 1980, I would definitely say it's gory for its time. By today's standards, obviously it's incredibly tame, but if you look back in the time frame that it was, we were seeing more in this than we were seeing in a lot of other horror movies at the time. I've reviewed, you know, When a Stranger Calls, and I've also, like Black Christmas, for example. These are horror films that came before Prom Night came out, but yet, and still, if you go back and watch them, even with the deaths in them and the way they're described and the way we're supposed to think about it, it's all about using your imagination. They don't show so much. Prom Night doesn't exactly show things verbatim, but we get enough sounds and we get enough close and like before and after shots to have an idea of what's going on. So the gore definitely stepped up in this. And not only that, it's interesting seeing Jamie Lee Curtis presented in a different light as well too, because Laurie Strode in Halloween, at least in the first Halloween, is very, very, very different than a lot of her other horror characters that she's played. And I get it. Laurie's character absolutely has evolved over the series in Halloween. In Halloween 2, she was basically in a catatonic state like the entire film. And if we get to H2O, Resurrection, and even now the Legacy sequels, Halloween 2018 and Halloween Ends, very, very different from the way Laurie was in the original film. But something about her character here in Prom Night, Kim, is just, it's the antithesis. She's very social, she's very outgoing, she's very upfront. She's like she protects her friends, she cares about her friends. And not to say Laurie doesn't, but Laurie was very timid and meek in the original film. So I think it was very refreshing to see Jamie Lee Curtis not play that same role, even if it's another slasher film. It's also very interesting to see Leslie Nielsen in here. And I think a lot of people really forget that around, like in the 90s, like when people like me really got to know Leslie Nielsen for things like Naked Gun and Spy Hard and Wrongfully Accused and so on. Leslie Nielsen actually had a dramatic career before he really started finding like this other niche of his doing comedic roles. And, you know, he's the father of Jamie Lee Curtis's character, and what am I thinking here? And one of the other characters in the film as well too, who turns out to be the killer. But they very much try to play it up as if Leslie Nielsen's character could be the killer as well too. And I think that that's great billing because, you know, this day and age, we probably wouldn't think that so much. But again, look at the time the film was released. The fact that Jamie Lee Curtis and Leslie Nielsen get top billing in it kind of seems, well, one's got to be the victim, one's got to be the killer at this point. And the marketing of this is just so interesting because if you ever see the alt poster, you know, it's the one where Jamie Lee Curtis in the pink dress with the what the hell is it called? The tiara and the roses, and she got the axe, so we give the impression that she might be the killer in this. There's nothing supernatural about this film. It's a really good movie. I really enjoy the kills. I love Jamie Lee Curtis's character. I love the relationship she has with her friends. Like I feel a lot of those roles really got fleshed out in the right way. But it's also very interesting to think that if you ever seen Prom Night 2, Hello, Mary Lou, that is a very different film from this because that absolutely takes a supernatural route while this doesn't. And again, it's a story of revenge, Prom Night. The killer is very much motivated by the loss of a family member. Very, you know, whether you want to say justified or not, definitely decides that the way to make it right is just to kill all the people who were involved in the death at the beginning of the film. And it is really fun in the last, like, you know, last 30 minutes of the movie when the killers go around and just killing everybody. Because again, we got a killer in our midst to the point to where they even take out the school bully by chopping his head off. And I love that they show that the killer just, you know, somehow planned this out all well to where they were going to have the opportunity to take out all their victims and not have to really worry about anything at all with this. Now, with that said, it's also interesting they take the route that they set up this subplot to where there's a possibility that there was another killer involved, that basically somebody else was responsible for it. But then, you know, later in the movie, obviously we find out like, hey, this person ended up getting arrested, so it obviously can't be this guy. There's got to be somebody else that's doing it. And I really enjoy subplots like that to try to lead us away because we know it can't be that. It can't be that simple, obviously. But again, horror movies around that time might make you think it's very straightforward like that. And Prom Night is one of these first horror films, one of these first slashers that really subverts us from like thinking dead on, it has to be this person. It's a really, really, really good watch, honestly. But I will say, and we'll get to it at some point there, if you do like Prom Night, you would really love Prom Night 2, Hello, Mary Lou, because again, it basically takes what's so good about this movie and it amps it up with a supernatural twist, which just makes it so much more fun to check out. Now, if you're wondering like how I would kind of rank it with Jamie Lee Curtis's other horror films, well, I have not, and y'all are gonna hate me for this, I've never seen The Fog. I've seen the remake. I've seen the remake because I was a huge Smallville fan, and I was like, cool, Tom Welling's doing a movie, and that movie sucked so badly. The cast was great, but that movie is terrible. But I've never gone back and watched the original film. It's on the list, so I got to get to that as well too. But it's at least above The Fog. I don't think I enjoy it more than any of the Halloween series, honestly. Like that's always gonna be at the top there, like anything that's in the Halloween series, even if it is Resurrection. I freaking love it. I really like Virus a lot as well too. So I don't know. Like, I always tend to rank things on the same level. So Prom Night's really good. It really is good, but I don't think that I like it more than other entries she's done, like Halloween, honestly. There's more for me in those films than there was in this. But that being said, you can check it out for yourself and tell me in the comments what you think. Prom Night is available for free right now on Prime Video. Go and check it out. Make sure to let me know your thoughts. Again, hit me in the comments, folks. Hey everybody, I appreciate you checking out this video, whether it was a review, whether it was a new episode, whether it was an unboxing, an interview, or whatever else. I want to remind you can check out my separate reviews also on my YouTube page, and new full episodes go up every Wednesday night on YouTube at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and on your favorite podcasting platforms at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and share. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.